Have you been feeling stuck, or have you ever experienced in your life feeling like you're really stuck in one set of consciousness or way of thinking? My name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine, and today's topic is the pendulum. My mother used to witness me as a child, stressed in thought. And I am an INFJ. INFJs in the Myers-Briggs personality matrix that psychologists sometimes give to people are 1 to 2% of the population. Autistic people are 1 to 2% of the population. All of this to say, it's like sometimes the person that you're talking to is not who you think they are, and they are not thinking the thoughts you think they're thinking. They don't think like you. And that's okay. It's okay for people to think differently than you. It doesn't make them a bad guy, because I've had a tremendous number of experiences with people projecting onto me that I'm a bad guy because I don't see things from their viewpoint. It doesn't mean I'm right. It could be wrong about everything I've ever said, but I do have a unique perspective. And I would get stuck in my perspectives as a child, and my mother would say, "Heather, the pendulum always swings. The pendulum doesn't remain in one place. We're in a dualistic realm, and the pendulum always swings. So trust wherever you find yourself now, you will come to a space of ease and grace if you are struggling with trial and tribulation. It's possible. It's possible that I believe divinity created these little rare birds in our world so that we might have a new way to look at things that can be commonplace where we get stuck in our thinking." And Heather Feather has wanted throughout her life to see the spectrum. When I look at any given thing, I want to see the full spectrum of the thing. If we're having a problem, I want to go back over here and look at the root. I want to swing the pendulum with all of my might and understand the full spectrum of what is occurring that has caused things to swing this way. So that landed in me and has reverberated in me in a few different ways throughout my life. And something that Heather notices often is that people tend to have tremendous empathy for their own labels, tremendous empathy for their own culture, not always empathy for other cultures. Doesn't matter what it is. I have empathy for my culture, tremendous empathy for their own gender, tremendous empathy for their own sexual identification. And as Heather pushes this pendulum, one could say, there's white privilege. People have privilege because they're white. That premise begins with the idea that, first of all, we're not all always given privilege. Whether you learn through challenge or grace, you're learning. And if the point is evolution, we're here to get work done. Let's go. You know what I mean? So we can say, like, you're privileged because you have this grace of not having this XYZ experience with a racist police officer. And that could be true for me in this iteration of incarnation. Again, I'm not a YOLOer. And this could be my first incarnation in which I have chosen this iteration of skin tone. And I have been all the other cultures. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm being given a privilege because I'm not being given challenge, if challenge is where the evolution work occurs. And one can say that I have privilege while at the same time they could be a full-bodied human that is not having to deal with a world that is not designed for those that are considered disabled or handicapable. We like to constantly change words. But, it's like my aunt has a wooden leg. She is a little person. She has half an arm. I would say my experiences with her are powerful and beautiful to me because she hasn't, always was just like, you got to come down here. I can't come up there. She was never, in my experience, bitter about the lack of privilege of her walking in a world that isn't designed to fit her body or make life easy for her on any level. There can be a strong lack of acknowledgement for things that you don't deal with and labels that you don't hold. And many of the medicine women I've worked with are well familiar. They've told me, "Oh, Heather, would you like to come do this women's group or women's?" And I've always told them, anytime you're having a party that invites all genitals, let me know. I'm happy to join in. But I don't ever want to go to a party that's genitalia-based and separatist. That party's not for Heather, And I've had these beautiful medicine women tell me, well, sometimes people are, they're coming into circle to heal trauma, and their trauma involved a man or whatever, and they want to feel like they're in a safe container. And I don't agree that separating genitals is the place where we're going to have healing on that top. I personally, I'm not right. I'm not superior. I'm not above anyone. I don't agree. I think that women, instead of sequestering themselves to deal with their pain, should sit in front of men and give them a moment of stage and grace to express their vulnerable pain and what they've been through, and perhaps their sexual assault, mental assault, emotional assault, spiritual assault. Men get abused too, and men are mistreated, and men date narcissists too, because women can be super narcissistic as well. And I think it could be very powerful and very profound if we brought all the genitalias together in a circle and let people share their stories. That used to be, I was watching The Chosen for the bajillionth time, and, they were talking about in Judaism, it's about being a storyteller. In shamanism, it's about being a storyteller. And there's a component of letting people weave their tales and tell their stories and honoring their stories. Heather's had a very dark life, and I have never assumed that I face the darkest life. I often pray for parents that lose their children. I haven't had that experience in this iteration of incarnation. Again, I do believe it's all connected. But in that regard, I pray often for any entity that's experiencing a life darker than I. I don't think I'm at the supreme level of darkness and suffering in this world. And people might hear that. I don't think I'm the smartest, greatest knower. Every day I'm like, you're such a ding dong, because I'm a ding dong in a lot of different ways. Being neurodivergent means I can be very intelligent, and there are ways I am childlike foolish, like not following the social cues for sure. Sometimes not knowing how I need to mask in a scenario to fit in and be like everyone else, which can be quite stressful. It is possible that there is a spectrum present, and in that spectrum, to me, the most evolved thing we can be is love. And I watch what the ego loves to do, is its job is to label, but it tends to, instead of discerning, I think this way, I prefer to communicate with people like this, it tends to judge. People that don't think like me are dumb and wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I watch a lot of seeing social media, seeing commentary from humanity that is about vilifying the enemy. And what is happening every single day of your life is you are swimming in an atomic soup and sea. And when you make an enemy of the world, and when you make an enemy of others, if you make an enemy of men, if you make an enemy of white males, if you make an enemy of blah, 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 first of all, unless you have come to spend decades to know all of the souls that hold the label you're talking about, and that to me would mean including knowing all of their past lives and all the things they've been, which is a difficult thing to witness, even for a seer like myself, then you don't know what you're talking about. Then you're being prejudiced, biased, separatist, and you're not being loved, which is the most evolved, delicious, wonderful offering you can give. Every moment of now, for all time, I have spoken, I've spoken the truth to you just now. And so you can justify your judgment, your separation, and you can also instead, Heather Feather has faced a lot of criminal acts and terrible things at the hands of men and women and theys. It's happened for me in all the ways we can identify. You know what I mean? And what I can say about it is none were superior in their negative, terrible offering. All of it was terrible. And, 0 stars, swipe left, wouldn't do it again. May I learn the lesson of what belongs in my garden and what gets prayed for and blessed at a distance, so that I can steward a garden where people aren't peeing in the garden and ripping up the plants as I'm trying to build something in the world. But never being superior. Heather is never superior to any entity. I'm not above you. I'm not below you. I am beside you. And I get to determine how much I'm going to choose to stew in separation and not be present with the possible spectrum that is always present. And one of the things I want to do with myself is recognize when the pendulum is hitting over here and Heather's in a space of abject darkness and she cannot see the virtue of her existence or why she should continue to exist, to trust that pendulum will swing and I will witness the glory of what it means to be a rare bird like me. Maybe you just haven't had the pendulum swing yet. You can always subscribe to Rare Bird Medicine on YouTube. Amun.